Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Akmal Imran bin Muhammad Asmawi. So for today our group would like to present about utility maximization. So this is our table of contents. For the introduction part, we need to ask ourselves, what is this topic about? I would like to give you an analogy about Ami and Hasif. Ami and Hasif have 100 ringgit. Ami buys essential goods such as rice, sugar and salt, while Hasif buy a new cheap phone with that 100 ringgit. This situation shows that different people allocate their incomes among the various goods and services that are available to them. When given 100 ringgit, how do Amin and Hasif decide which goods and services they wanted to buy? And this topic also covers how does COVID-19 affect people in making this sort of situation.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. My name is Muhammad Amin bin Muhammad Nur and my metric number is 2118015. And now, for my part, I'm going to present about the law of diminishing the marginal utility. This theory we have learned in chapter 3 before this, which as a consumer buys more unit of given product, their satisfaction will decreases. It shows that the more of that product people acquire, the less they desire more. For example, a person may purchase a specific type of hand sanitizer for a period of time. They may soon buy less that type of hand sanitizer and instead option for another sort of hand sanitizer, since the satisfaction they use to derive from hand sanitizer is diminishing. In this law of diminishing the marginal utility, there are three terminology. The first is utility and usefulness are not the same. For example, if I buy a painting or picture just because I like it or it's my hobby, it can only satisfy my utility, but it has no usefulness. Second is utility is subjective. It means that the utility is different from person to person. For example, a make may provide different level of satisfaction to different person. Third, utility is hard to count, but in order to make it easier, people can measure satisfaction with units called util. So for the next slide is about total utility and marginal utility. Total utility is the total satisfaction received from consuming a given total quantity of a good or services, while marginal utility is the satisfaction gained from consuming an additional quantity of the item. For example of total utility is when we buy hand sanitizer in this COVID-19 situation. If we buy one hand sanitizer, it will give us amount of 10 utils, but the second one had a marginal utility of 18. So the total utility of two hand sanitizer is 28. If you see in this table and graph, it shows that hand sanitizer used per day in the first column, the total utility in the second column, and the marginal utility in the last column. The chart above is shown the relation between the hand sanitizer used per day and total utility, and the chart below shows the relation between hand sanitizer used per day and marginal utility. As the amount of hand sanitizer used per day increase, the marginal utility will decrease. So next, we will talk about marginal utility and demand. The concept of declining marginal utility explains why a product demand curve is sloped downward. As we see in the previous slide, it shows that price must decrease in order for quantity demanded to increase. For example, in this pandemic COVID-19, Hussein buy two hand sanitizer. The first time he buy, it will satisfy him. But the second time, as he obtains less marginal utility from additional hand sanitizer, he will choose not to buy more at that price. I would rather spend additional money on product that provide more utility. As a result, purchasing more hand sanitizer with less utility is not worthwhile unless the price is dropped.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. I am Muhammad Azrasif. So moving on to the next part, which is theory of consumer behavior. In this part, it's described how rational consumers maximize utility by comparing the marginal utility to price ratios of all the products they could possibly purchase. In addition to explaining the law of demand, the idea of diminishing marginal utility explains how consumers allocate their money incomes among the many goods and services available for purchase. So next, consumer choice and the budget constraint. There are four dimensions for typical consumer situations. So for the first one is rational behavior. Customer who tries to use his or her money income to derive the greatest amount of satisfaction or utility from it. So in other words, people want to get the most for their income. So the next one is preferences. Each consumer has clear-cut preferences for certain of the goods and services that are available in the market. So it depends on their preference. And the third one is budget constraint. Every consumer faces a budget constraint as they earn limited income. This budget limitation is more severe for those who earn an average income compared to those who earn extraordinary income. And the last one is prices. Because the consumer has a limited number of dollars, he or she cannot buy everything they wanted. Of all the different combinations of goods and services a consumer can obtain within his or her budget, so which specific combination will yield the maximum utility or satisfaction? Maximum satisfaction, the consumer should allocate his or her money income so that the last spent on each product yields the same amount of extra or as marginal utility. We call this the utility maximizing rule. So how to illustrate utility maximizing rule? So first of all, we need to have a numerical example. So in economics, we can have two types of goods or maybe more of them. And after that, from the numerical example, we can use three concepts of these, which are marginal utility per dollar, decision making process, and inferior options. So let's see how we do marginal utility per dollar. Okay, so our friend just now, Muhammad Otai, want to increase his safety during this pandemic COVID-19. So he want to buy premium face mask or premium face shield by using his only $12. So from the first look, we may consider premium face shield is the best choice to fully use his money and his satisfaction, because the marginal utility for premium face shield is 36, as you can see that, but it is not actually, because the price is different. So when we do the calculation, the marginal utility per dollar for premium face mask is 4, and premium face shield has a 3 marginal utility. Let's see how our friend just now, Muhammad Otai, want to increase his consumption of vitamin C by buying two types of product, which is guava and mango, during this pandemic to increase his health condition. So he has only $10, so let's see how he allocates his money. So let's see how the decision making process happens. So for choice number 1, the potential choices are between the first guava and the first mango, and whereby the marginal utility per dollar is 10 and 12 respectively. So which one will Muhammad Otai buy first? So of course it will be the first mango, because it gives more amount of marginal utility per dollar, which is 12. So it costs $2. So the remaining income is 8, because $10 minus $2. So moving on to the next choice. So the potential choices are between the first guava and the second mango. So the marginal utility per dollar offers are the same, which is 10. So the purchases, he can purchase both of them, first guava and also the second mango, and the remaining income is just $5. So the third choice will be between the second guava or the third mango, and it gives different amount of marginal utility per dollar, which are 8 and 9. So of course he will choose the third mango because it offers bigger amount of marginal utility per dollar, which is 9. So the remaining income will be $3 only. So the last choice will Muhammad Otai decide is between the second guava or the first mango, and both of them are giving the same amount of utility per dollar, which is 8. So he can buy both of them, and the remaining income will be 0. So he finally has fully utilized his income or his money, which is $10. So the final decision, it will give the best combination of both product, which is 2 guavas and 4 mangoes, and will give 96 utils of satisfaction. So this is the total of utility gained by Muhammad Otai.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Afroz and my metric number is 2117167. So I will continue to talk about utility maximization and the demand curve. So choices that maximize utility, it is choices that follow the marginal decision rule, generally produce a downward sloping demand curve. So in this section, it shows how an individual utility maximizing choices can lead to a demand curve. So straight to the example, suppose that in specific possibility that Ahmad wanted to buy hand sanitizer and soap, which cost 4 ringgit and 2 ringgit each, and his budget allows him to spend 40 ringgit on those two goods. We assume that Ahmad will adjust his consumption so that the utility maximizing condition for the two goods, which the ratio of marginal utility for price is the same for both hand sanitizer and soap. So it allows him to buy 5 hand sanitizer and 10 soap, as it equals to his budget of 40 ringgit. Now suppose that the price of hand sanitizer decreases to 2 ringgit each. The lower price of hand sanitizer increases the marginal utility of each 2 ringgit Ahmad spends on hand sanitizer, so that at the current level of consumption of hand sanitizer and soap, Ahmad will respond by purchasing more hand sanitizer. As he does so, the marginal utility he receives from hand sanitizer will decline. If he regards hand sanitizer and soap as substitute, he will also buy fewer soap. That will cause the marginal utility of soap to rise. He will continue to adjust his spending until the marginal utility per 2 ringgit spent is equal for both goods. So, in conclusion, Ahmad purchases 12 hand sanitizer and 8 soap, which he still spends all of his budget of 40 ringgit for the two goods. So this is the demand curve. Ahmad's demand curve for hand sanitizer can be derived by determining the quantities of hand sanitizer we will buy at each price. Those quantities are determined by the application of the marginal division rule to utility maximization. At the price of 4 ringgit per bottle, Ahmad maximized utility by purchasing 5 bottles of hand sanitizer. When the price of hand sanitizer falls to 2 ringgit per bottle, the quantity of hand sanitizer at which he maximized utility increases to 12 bottles.
We move on to the fifth part of our topic, which is income and substitution effect. Definition of income effect is the impact that a change in the price of a product has on a consumer's real income and consequently on the quantity demanded of that good, while the substitution effect is the impact that a change in the product price has on the relative expensiveness and consequently on the quantity demanded. I would like to give an example. Suppose that Kementerian Kesihatan Malaysia wanted to buy vaccine Pfizer A with the price of 10 ringgit per unit and vaccine Sinovac B with the price of 30 ringgit per unit. They have a budget of 100,000 ringgit and they decide to buy 2,000 unit of A and 4,000 unit of B. As what we can see over here, the equation shows that Kementerian Kesihatan Malaysia for now is in equilibrium consumer when purchasing 2,000 vaccine A and 4,000 vaccine B. Let's see what will happen if there is a fall in price for vaccine B from 20 ringgit to 10 ringgit. From this equation, we can see that the margin utility of vaccine B is bigger than margin utility of vaccine A. For substitution effect, the last ringgit spent on vaccine B now use greater utility of 160 utils than vaccine A 80 utils. It shows that KKM need to switch or substitute purchases away from vaccine A and toward vaccine B as to restore a consumer equilibrium. This substitution effect contributes to the inverse relationship between price and quantity that leads to downward sloping. To conclude, when the price of vaccine B declines, the substitution effect causes KKM to buy more of vaccine B. For the income effect, the decline in the price of vaccine B from 20 ringgit to 10 ringgit increases KKM real income. But at lower price, KKM would have to spend only 60,000 rather than 100,000 to buy the particular combination of good. This means that KKM save up to 40,000 ringgit. How many more of which vaccine government end up buying will be determined by applying the utility maximizing rule to the new situation. KKM end up buying more vaccine B after price reduction than before the price reduction. Any such increase in vaccine B purchases is referred to as the income effect of the reduction in the price of vaccine B, and it will help to explain why demand curve are downward sloping. To conclude, again, when the price of vaccine B falls, the income effect causes KKM to buy more of vaccine B.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Muhammad Zaidan Afifi bin Hafiz Ridwan and my metric number is 2119555. Thank you, brother, for the previous explanation. And now I will continue this video presentation with indifference curve and analysis. So what is indifference curve? Indifference curve shows all the combination of two products that will yield the same total satisfaction or total utility to a consumer. This curve slopes downward because more of one product means less of the other. Or we can say that by adding one product, it will reduce the other product as long as the total utility will remain unchanged or remain constant. So as we can see here, this is the example of indifference curve that shows the combination of hand sanitizer and face mask. A consumer can choose any combination as long as the point is on the curve that will meet the total satisfaction or total utility to the consumer. For the example, the point A, B, C, D, E is on the curve, so consumer can choose any of them. So we'll move to marginal rate of substitution, or we call it as MRS. So what is MRS? MRS is the rate at which the consumer who possesses the combination must substitute one good for the other to remain equally satisfied. So as we can see here, how to calculate MRS? Okay, first we will calculate the foregone units of face mask or the sacrifice units of face mask, which is from point A to B, which is 14 to 9, we will get 5. We will be divided by the adding product, which is 1 to 2, and the difference is 1. So 5 divided by 1, we will get 5. So we can see the other example, which is from point B to C, C to D, and D to E. And lastly is indifference map. Indifference map indicates a set of indifference curves. So you can say that in this graph we have a lot of indifference curves. Curves that are further from origin from the origin point show that higher levels of total utility. Okay, as we can see at the right side, IC3 shows that the higher levels of total utility than IC2 and IC1.